those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Or you might see the word security replacing the word safety there. This is a quote attributed to Benjamin Franklin, a founding father, but we can also attribute that quote to any time in history, including the present time which we now live. Anybody want to explain what it means or have any comments on it? Joel?
I suppose we could tie it into like, I want to say tyranny. That's
Okay.
It's the word I was thinking of.
What is tyranny?
It's
Is tyranny a cousin of liberty or is it the opposite of liberty?
the opposite.
Okay.
But that's what I was thinking. What's the trade? Like, it's kind of like it's traders that. Because.
You said traitorous?
Yeah, but I don't know. If you if you fight out against something you believe, something that is important, I know how to explain it in my head, but I'm not very good at putting it out.
Let me help you. Maybe this is what you're thinking. Is the concept of liberty or freedom important in America?
Yeah.
Yes. And Benjamin Franklin's living at a time where they are embarking on this great experiment, capital G, capital E, in government, where they're going to try to institute a republic based on self-government. They've studied ancient Rome and Greece and other places that have tried this. They know that the line of history is filled with not democracy, is filled with tyranny, whether through dictatorships or monarchs, or that's history, right? Where power is very much centralized into the hands of one or very few people. And they're trying something that they believe will work. By the way, little Hartman Christian addition to this commentary is that you wouldn't hear up the street probably. The only way they knew this would work is if the people were Christian. Even the founders that weren't Christian knew that the only way they're going to make this experiment work is if the people themselves were godly, biblically principled people. So he's writing this at that time saying, listen, if we're going to go into this and people are going to give up the liberty, essential liberty. First of all, what's essential liberty? Give me an example of what Benjamin Franklin might have called essential liberty. Okay? James says capitalism, because capitalism and American freedom grew together like this. Capitalism depends on individual freedom, and individual freedom, just capitalism is the economic plan that goes with that. So James says it's essential that people are able to, what's capitalism say? People are able to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. People are able to pursue their dreams, use the talents God's given them to be an entrepreneur, to be an inventor, to work as a janitor if they want. That's not putting janitors down. I'm just saying you could be. I'm not.
Yeah. Hey, I got you, Jordan.
I mean, it's sad that you have to say that. You could be a landscaper, janitor, pilot, engineer. Capitalism affords people the freedom to do that. Capitalism, its counterpart or its opposition would be a system like socialism / communism, where the government decides who's needed where and where your skills will best help society. So James says that capitalism is kind of an essential liberty. We need to be able to be independent economic agents. Does everybody understand? Not everybody might not think that. But what Franklin's saying is that if you give up liberty for a little bit of temporary security, then you don't even deserve liberty.
That's like, I'm trying to think of the situation.
Well, let's apply it to 2021 America. How could someone apply this to 2021 America? Jake,
Getting vaccinated.
okay, so the vaccine mandate, that's all the rage, right? And the people, and it seems like, again, another situation where the country split 50-50. But the stats tell us that in some communities, I think still way less than half have been vaccinated. Why? Because they don't want to give up. They've determined, for whatever reason they have, that that's not something they want to put in their body. Is it an essential liberty to be able to determine what you put in your body? Okay. There's a popular saying in America over the last 50 years, my body, my choice, right? It's like the government, in a free society, the government can't mandate, dictate what you put in your body, right? So if you give up that liberty for temporary, is the pandemic temporary?
Yes.
Praise God, we hope so, right?
But how can they still decline
Is it-
Nobody's panicking and it's something epidemic.
Well, pan means all over the world. But that's another discussion, because, oops, that's another discussion. But if you give that up for something that's temporary, or little, that's a big word too. Get it? See what I did there? Little security, or little temporary safety. How dangerous is the virus?
Very.
Non-lethal.
You have a
Hold on.
0.001% chance
To
of
some
dying.
people, it's very dangerous. To a small percentage of people, it's very dangerous. But should we be willing to give up liberty to say, okay, I give up autonomy, there's one of our vocab words, I give up autonomy over my own body because the government says that that's going to make all of our society secure. It's going to make you and me and everyone more safe or secure. So I should be willing to give up that liberty. That's kind of the question that we're living under in the last year and a half. And in America, thankfully, it's a struggle. Because think about this, no matter what side of that fence you're on, if it wasn't a struggle, then basically the liberty that America established 240 years ago was kind of gone, right? If there wasn't anyone standing up against the mandates, it would kind of be like the spirit of freedom's dead, right? Even if you do think that even if you do think this is all, people are crazy because they're going against it, and you're selfish, wanting to be worried about your freedom, like the president said last week, this isn't about freedom. He said that to Americans. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Your body, my choice. I'll throw a tomato at him. Your body, my choice.
How dangerous is it? They bring up other vaccines like polio and smallpox, and people readily got those vaccines because it was for the good and safety of everyone, right?
Actually kill you.
But when you look at those other diseases in the past that had mortality rates of 25 to 30%, maybe common sense, people that believe in liberty and safety could say, you know what, maybe we should get vaccinated against this before it kills a lot of people that we know, 25 to 30% mortality. But this virus has about a little over 1% mortality.
1%?
And if you're not old, little over 1. If you're not elderly, obese, diabetic, or already have heart disease, the chances of you dying of this virus are way less than 1%. So are we as a society willing to give up liberty to keep us secure?
From nothing.
Where's the balance? How much danger is there? How much liberty do we have to give up for a danger that's not really prevalent for most people? And listen, here's the thing about history. If you give up liberty what's the chances of getting it back? If the arc of history shows us that about power struggles and groups of people constantly wanting to assert themselves and gain power, what's the chances of getting liberty back? Yeah.
When we visit my mom's dad and his wife in Columbus, he has sarcoidosis around his heart, and so he needs to function with a pacemaker, and they're really worried about COVID and everything. But when we went to visit them a couple months ago, we didn't think they were that serious about it because like they're cool with it and stuff. Well, they believe that Christians shouldn't be political at all, ever, any state or time. And she made us wear masks in the house and like made us wear like 2 masks when we went to go hug them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just really sad. We haven't seen her or his face in like years. Wow, their own children don't have to wear masks in the house or anything.
And do their own children go out in public and mingle with others?
They're all doctors. My uncle is a dentist.
Do you think how recently did you go there?
A couple months ago.
Do you think it's because I don't know the situation, but if your family wasn't vaccinated, do you think that's a partial reason?
My other family wasn't vaccinated. I mean, my grandparents are, but I don't think their kids were.
Because the prevailing thought a couple months ago was that if you get the vaccine, then you might not even get the virus. And if you got the virus, it wouldn't get as bad. Unfortunately, time is telling us that as we go on, more and more people that have gotten the vaccine are still getting the virus, and some of those people are still dying even though they got the vaccine.
It's water.
Yes.
Do you think there will be side effects like 50 years from now?
Okay.
with the vaccine?
What's the problem with the vaccine? Americans have been getting vaccinated for a century. Why is there so much consternation and people arguing about the vaccine? What's the big deal? He says, what about the side effects? Not just short term, but long term. Are there studies that tell us ladies and gentlemen, are there studies that we can conclusively say that this vaccine is not harmful, first of all, in the short term, and secondly, in the long term? Are there conclusive studies on that? No, there aren't. No, and no matter what side you're on, you'd be lying if you said there were. Because this is the first vaccine of this kind. Some people don't even call it a vaccine because it's a RNA messenger type substance they're putting into you. But then it also hasn't been tested on animals
With the rabbits.
to see what any long-term effects might be. Usually it takes years. There's a reason it usually takes years to develop a vaccine because we want to make sure that it's safe. And again, we go back to how much danger are we in to dictate what should we do in response to it. Here's the facts. The virus itself has very, 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 very little chance of severely harming you or killing you. The vaccine has very, 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 very little chance of harming you or killing you. But both have harmed and killed people. Were you going to say something, Drew?
I'm going to kind of say something.
Yeah.
You have more chance of dying when you get in your car every morning than dying of COVID.
Your age, you're absolutely right. Yes.
How long did they test the smallpox vaccine?
I'm not sure, but I think years. So for years, people lived with the idea that if there was a smallpox outbreak in your community or country, you just faced the fact that you were going to lose people, and you did your best to avoid contracting it, right? Until they got the vaccine.
I think anybody wore a mask.
And then the mask thing, I didn't really mean for this to turn into 20 minutes of discussing, that mandate, but this is an important quote. And we're in civics talking about American freedom. And you've got a crossword puzzle as your quote-unquote non-study guide, helpful way of studying, just another way of looking at the information besides studying your notes or Ryan's Quizlet. We're gonna end it.
I don't even know you.
Just not for touch.
You don't,
Let's not Victoria.
Thanks, Evan.
well, I just did.
Here's what we'll do, since this is the first one. For some of you, James, Sophia, for some of you, the first time in my history class, second grade school, let's just do the first one together, shall we? Ready? So you get an idea of what I'm looking for when I do these crossword puzzles. Edmund Blank. Raise your hand if you know the answer. Yes. Burke, with an E on the end. So one or three across, B-U-R-K-E. Now, you could just go to 4 across. Or, depending on your strategy, how you do crossword puzzles, you could say, oh, I know the first letter of 3 down. According to Deuteronomy, obedience sanctions blank. James.
Blessings.
Blessing. Is it plural or not? I don't think I made it plural. Blessing. Everybody clear on how to do this? What if your strategy was just to go all the across? The 4th level of government. Church. Should fit in 4 across. And now that you have the first letter and 4 down, what kind of laws are made by representatives?
Civil.
Thanks for letting me hear.
Voto a hamburguesa.
Civil laws. Everybody understand what to do? How to do? Test on Wednesdays.